behind me is the next build on the video. I don't even know why I'm doing that. You can already see it in the thumbnail. It's the MT-07. We're gonna be turning this into a dual sport or a DIY Tenere 700. We're gonna be putting knobbies on it, skid plates, big crash bars, and fuel tanks, and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's not just gonna be for looks. This is gonna be functional. I know there's gonna be a lot of you that are excited about this, some of you are confused about this, and some of you are going, Jay, what are you doing? But hear me out before you go crazy and you leave the channel and discuss. I've sat out here for many of hours looking at this thing, making notes, searching all over the internet for hours and hours, and I've got everything pretty much figured out and how we're going to do this. This thing is going to become the DIY Tenere 700.
MT-07 Adventure Bike Series. We'll bolt some parts on, then we'll go off-roading.
So why would I do this? Why? Why? Mainly because it's fun, okay? I also realized the ironicness of this taking my dirt bike and making it to a street bike, and now I'm gonna take my street bike and turn it to a dirt bike. But you know what? That's fun. That's what you do. The reason why I'm doing this though is, one, we could say Yamaha's taking forever to release the Tenere 700, but honestly, it's beyond that. There's so many great bikes out now that are like specifically made for doing certain things. We could buy like a T7 when it comes out, or we could take the bike we already have that's paid off and use it. And I say, why not? You know, back in the day, they didn't have 100 different specific motorcycles to do 100 very specific things. Dudes back in the day were just hardcore. They took what they had, and they took it off-road, and they took it to the track, they did whatever with it, man. They'd wrench on it between weekends, and that was like the old school spirit. Dual sport was more of a state of mind back in the day. And kind of in that spirit of those dudes, I say let's do it. I mean, those guys were doing it on big old Harleys and other bikes that were way more terrible starting points. I think adventure motorcycle stuff sounds super cool, man. I've never done anything like that. And I also realized I could just put the dual sport tires and rims back on the XR and maybe like some other mods, and that would actually probably be the easier or cheaper way to do this. Again, that's not fun. It seems like there's two sort of ways to do this. One, you see a lot of these bikes that never actually gonna hit any dirt. It's like a showpiece. That's bull. The other way to do it is to do it real quick and dirty, and you get out there and you rip it around in the dirt, do a few jumps, you get some Instagram videos or whatever with it, and you call it good. Forget that too. I want this thing when it's done, like to actually be able to go on a trip and go off-roading and trail riding and dual sporting, adventure riding, all that stuff. I want to camp off that thing. I want to have a flippin' adventure with my street bike. Let's actually talk about how I plan to do it. And here, I've drawn on my board here an MT-07. Shut up. As you can see, this is the MT-07 in standard form with its wheels and motors and everything in the correct places. Anyone who's been around for a while has seen that I've taken my MT-07 off-roading quite a bit already, like an idiot. One of the things I'm always worried about when I go off-roading is the actual rims themselves. I'm always worried I'm going to break one of these cast rims, and so we're going to get rid of those. We're going to be putting Excel rims on this thing. They're still going to be 17-inch rims, but we're going to have legit Excel rims. A big 5.5 on the rear, 3.5 on the front. Still going to have our dual disc brakes, and everything's going to bolt up to them all the same. This type of rim will be a lot stronger, as well as it's got a little bit of flex to it. A whole other set of rims, I can leave street bike tires on and just fast swap between them. The next thing's, of course, gotta have knobbies. Giant 180 knobby right here. Look at this thing, dude. One of our other major concerns with this bike, of course, is our low ground clearance and the fact that the oil pan is the lowest hanging thing on this bike. So we got another solution for that. Big sort of stunt cage thing on here. It comes all the way down, and represented in red for no reason whatsoever. It's not gonna be red. Is a super legit, not effing around skid plate. This skid plate is connected to our stunt cage. We're gonna be putting much taller bars on here so that we can stand up and ride. That's how bars look. Shut up. Oh yeah, headlight. An insane LED headlight that's coming. We're gonna put a little dirt fender on the front. Seat and all the plastics on the back. Nope. We're gonna have a much flatter seat coming across here. The back here is actually gonna be a rack to bolt things to. There's going to be a sub cage going around the back of the bike here, and roto packs on the back. Probably a big bag across the back here. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm not an artist, but this should give you an idea. So far, everyone I've explained this to, their first and biggest question is, what are you gonna do about the suspension? The suspension is pretty tricky for two main reasons, and I'm gonna try to make this as brief as possible, but if you want to skip past that, this will be the time to skip to. Two major problems. Let's talk about the first one, which has a lot to do with sort of cost and time. If you just wanted to swap in a different set of forks on here, that's not necessarily too hard. You'd probably just get a whole front end and wheel, maybe like off of 450 or something. It doesn't even have to be a Yamaha. It doesn't matter what brand it is, because we're gonna have to be custom fitting it to this bike regardless. You could use the triples it comes with, and you'd probably just have to do a custom stem in the middle here. Somebody with a lathe can usually make you one of those. You can make that work, and you actually see a lot of custom builds for rolling around at shows with front ends like that. In the real world, there's a problem with those, and that usually has to do with things called the bump stops, the things that keep the bars from turning so far. Just about every bike has a different setup. On the MT-07, there's a little tab on the frame and a point that they lower triple contacts. On the XR, for instance, we have a point here and here that make contact. Basically, every bike is probably slightly different some way. You really need to make sure that that's correct, otherwise the bars flopping all the way over can bang into the tank, you can crush the wires. If you're just building a pure show bike, this isn't a worry for you. But since I know this thing's gonna get dropped a lot once we turn it into a dual sport, we need to have a proper bump stop setup on there. And pretty much at that point, you're talking about a custom set of triples. And I don't have a CNC machine. I don't know how to work one if I had one anyway. So that would be paying somebody to basically build a set of those. So remember, we have to get a whole front end, wheel, and triples off of another motorcycle. Maybe we can find a decent set in good shape for maybe about $1,000 for all that. Probably a little optimistic because you need all that stuff, and if you want it in decent shape, not something that's been sitting out in a barn for years, might cost you a little more than that, but let's just say we found a decent set. You're gonna have to get that suspension custom tuned and valved, and this is not gonna be in the off-the-shelf parts. Taking the suspension to a place that's gonna pull it apart, look it over, figure out what they think it's gonna need, then custom order parts from someone like Race Tech. That's gonna be at least $1,000. Then you're also gonna be going to a single rotor on the front, and this bike's probably a little heavy for a single rotor, so I think you'd have to do something like we did on the XR and put a big race setup on there, like a supermoto race brake setup. That will run you about $1,300. And then of course there's that upper triple that we have to get custom made. I have no idea how much that's gonna cost. I would be having to go to somebody that you'd be willing to take something like that on. Really optimistic. Let's pretend we could find a machine shop that's willing to help us, and then we do it for $500. When you're trying to have one built ground up that's never existed, that number's no way. I just don't even think so, but I'm just trying to come up with something. At least $3,800 to do the front end. And unfortunately, things don't get any easier for the rear end here. Probably say I'll just swap in, you know, a swing arm off of like a WR or something like that. Maybe, but you gotta remember, this thing is designed for a big 5.5-inch rear rim, so the offset of your chain to the back sprocket are gonna be pretty far off. Probably have to get like a custom hub made and extend it out. You have to cut the swing arm, maybe. There's a handful of different ways I could think to do it. They're all very complicated, expensive. I think actually the easiest thing to do would be modify the factory swing arm, maybe extend it a little bit. You have to do it right. You don't want to do bolt-on extenders for something you're gonna really be off-roading with. Those things are kind of iffy as is. Oh, the shock. The shock is running horizontal on this bike, and it's not a super long shock. We need to get a long vertical shock and have a linkage system down below the bike if we're gonna actually have a lot of travel out of it. So that means we need to cut up our factory frame, engineer our own linkage system, your battery boxes here. It's just a lot of custom work. There's not really like a super easy way to do it. Having to find someone who have the machining capabilities and the time to do all this. And it's definitely more complicated than the front end. Also, you gotta get a shock for the rear and get that custom valved and sprung and all that too. We said it was $3,800 to do the front. It would probably be more than that to do the rear. But let's just pretend it was also $3,800 to do the rear. Something like $7,600 to do this. A lot of money. That's as much as the bike cost. So, and again, I know there's like fast, easy ways to do this. I know there's a lot of people out there that slap do front ends like that. But if you want it to actually be done right and be durable, you're gonna have to really, that's the only way I would accept it. And again, that's all just problem number one. Problem two is that once we did all this, we would lose the capability of being able to swap it back over. That's what I'd love to do. I'd love to be able to actually swap the other rims back in and use this like a normal machine. So, nope, we're not doing that. What I lack in suspension travel and ground clearance, I will make up for with skid plate. I don't have all the parts here for this yet. Just don't kill me if it's like a few weeks until the next build video. A lot of this, like I said, is me waiting for other parts to show up. And I mean, some of these parts that are coming too are not just sitting on a shelf. It's one of those things where, you know, it gets ordered and then somebody goes and makes it. Let's go ahead and start pulling off some of the parts. Pretty good start there. We could tear some more things down, but I want to keep it as a roller as I can. I mean, there's no reason to take the bars off or anything yet. It's so hilariously light right now. Well, chilly out there, isn't it? It's honestly, I'm like excited looking at it like this. I'm like, yes, this is gonna be sweet. So remember to leave a like. I hate saying that. It does help though. It does, that is how the system works. All right. I don't know what I'm doing. Get some glasses on here so I can select this. Let's you guys hear about my new band? All right, I'm like left-handed. This is hard. I'm trying to start it over.